Her gaze locked onto mine across the lecture hall, steady and unyielding, like she could see right through the walls I'd built. I shifted in my seat, the wooden chair creaking under me, but I couldn't look away. That's when it hit. The old ache, sharp as the gravel crunching under tires the day my mother drove off without a backward glance, leaving only the dust settling in her wake. Now this woman, paired with me for the semester's film project, meant weeks of forced closeness, no escape from her quiet intensity, or the pull in my chest that whispered danger. Attraction twisted with distrust, hot and unwelcome, drawing me in even as I braced for the inevitable leave. The editing suite was tucked in the basement of the film building, a dim cave where the air hung heavy with stale coffee and the faint hum of cooling fans. Screens flickered like distant fires, casting blue shadows on the walls cluttered with old posters from student festivals. I spent most nights there alone, piecing together shots that never quite captured what I felt inside, fragments of stories about people who stayed, even when they shouldn't. My name's Elena, and I'd learned early that relying on anyone just led to empty spaces. Relationships ended fast for me. A girlfriend in high school ghosting after a fight, another in my sophomore year packing up mid-semester without a word. I kept my circle small, my heart smaller, focusing on the lens instead. It was safer that way. The camera a barrier between me and the world. She walked in that first afternoon like she owned the space, backpack slung over one shoulder, her flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms dusted with faint scars from who knows what, guitar strings maybe, or fieldwork. Riley. That's what the professor called her when he announced the pairings, his voice echoing off the concrete. Elena and Riley, you'll tackle the vulnerability piece for the campus festival submission. My stomach dropped. The project was high stakes, a short film on emotional exposure, due in 8 weeks, judged by alumni who could open doors to real gigs. No solo work allowed. Collaboration was the rule, meant to mirror life. But life had taught me people bailed when it got real. Riley slid into the chair beside me, her knee brushing mine under the console before she pulled back. Hey, I'm Riley. Looks like we're stuck together. Her voice was low, steady, with a hint of gravel that made my skin prickle. She offered a hand, calluses rough against my palm, and I shook it quick, dropping it like it burned. Suspicion coiled in my gut. Too friendly, too soon. People like her, the ones who dove in headfirst, always had angles. Elena, I muttered, turning to the screen. Let's just get the outline done. The professor had dumped the theme on us without mercy. Vulnerability. Dig deep, he'd said, pacing the front of the class earlier that day. Show the raw edges of trust. I hated it. My scripts always skirted the surface, quick cuts to action, avoiding the linger of eyes or the weight of unspoken words. Riley, though, leaned in close, her breath warm on my shoulder as she scanned the prompt. What if we make it about someone afraid to let go, like the fear of being left behind? Her words landed too close, stirring that old silt in my chest, the memory of my mother's taillights fading into the night, the house suddenly too quiet, my father retreating into silence. I pulled away. No, that's too personal. Keep it abstract. She didn't push, just nodded, but her eyes held that steady gaze again, like she was already seeing more than I wanted. We spent the next hour hashing out a rough concept. A woman, alone, in a cabin, shadows closing in as she wrestles with opening a door to someone outside. Simple, symbolic, but every time our hands brushed over the script pages, her fingers steady, mine trembling slightly, my heart thudded against my ribs, a dull ache echoing the isolation I'd carved out for myself. Attraction flickered, unwanted, in the way her hair fell across her forehead, dark waves catching the screen's glow. I distrusted it, distrusted her ease, the way she suggested fixes without hesitation, like she could patch my gaps. By evening, the suite felt smaller, the air thicker with the scent of her soap, something earthy like pine after rain. We should storyboard tonight, she said, unpacking her laptop. I wanted to say no, to cite my unreliability line. People flake, project stall? Better alone? But the deadline loomed, the festival entry fee already paid from my dwindling savings. Fine, I said, voice tight. But don't expect me to spill my soul for this. That first late-night session stretched into the hours after midnight, the campus outside gone silent under a thin frost. We sat side by side, markers scratching over paper, her knee occasionally grazing mine in the cramped space. Conversation came reluctant, forced by the mounting pressure. The professor's warning that incomplete pairs got zeros. No exceptions. Why film? She asked at one point, her voice cutting the hum of the hard drive. I hesitated, the question probing too deep. It's control. You decide what stays, what gets cut. She nodded slowly, her fingers pausing on the page. Makes sense, but sometimes you have to let the raw stuff in. Her words felt like a trap, sweet bait hiding the hook of expectation. I changed the subject, pointing to a shot list, but inside, the fear stirred. Proximity like this meant risk, meant eventual abandonment when she realized I wasn't worth the effort. As the clock ticked past 2, exhaustion gripped my eyes, but Riley stayed focused, suggesting a twist. The woman outside the door isn't a stranger, but someone who's always been there, waiting. My pulse quickened, not just from the idea, but from the way her hand lingered near mine on the table, warmth seeping through. Distrust warred with the pull, that magnetic draw to her calm. We wrapped up with a tentative plan, but as she packed her bag, slinging it over her shoulder with a quiet, "See you tomorrow," I felt the walls I'd built tremble. The project bound us now, inescapable, and with it, the slow unraveling I both craved and feared. The days blurred into a rhythm that grated on me, the shared studio space turning every moment into something amplified, inescapable. We'd arrive around noon after classes, the door clicking shut behind us like a seal on a pressure cooker. Her sighs when she scanned footage, soft but deliberate, cut through the quiet. My keyboard clicks echoed sharper in response, each tap a reminder of how close we sat, elbows nearly touching on the narrow console. The air grew thick with the scent of her flannel, worn cotton mixed with faint pine, and the ever-present stale coffee from the pot we kept brewing to stay alert. I hated how it all pressed in, how the space forced awareness of her every shift, her breath steady where mine came shallow. The isolation I'd carved out felt threatened, the old wound reopening without mercy. Nights alone I'd lie awake, the memory surfacing unbidden, my mother's sudden departure when I was 12, the slam of the car door, tires spitting gravel as she vanished down the drive. No note, no call, just gone, chasing some vague promise of better. Dad never spoke of it, retreating into his work, leaving me to navigate the silence. It fueled everything now, this self-imposed distance. People left? They always did. Letting Riley in, even for a project, risked that echo, the empty chair, the unfinished scenes. So I kept my responses clipped, my eyes on the screen, building walls frame by frame. She persisted, though, in ways that unnerved me. One afternoon, she slid a bag of trail mix across the table, nuts and dried fruit, spilling slightly. Figured we could use fuel, she said. No big deal, but her eyes lingered, waiting for thanks. I wouldn't give. She listened, too, head tilted when I muttered about a shot angle, nodding without interrupting, like she truly cared. But it felt off, those silences full of unspoken probes. Her words landed like gentle traps. That take's got real emotion. Why cut it so quick? I shrugged it off, but inside, suspicion twisted. Was she prying, angling to expose the cracks I hid? Our first real disagreement hit midweek, over the film's core. We'd storyboarded the cabin scene, the lone woman pacing inside, door rattling from knocks outside. I pushed for self-protection as the theme, barricades, locks, the safety of solitude. It's about choosing to stay shut, I argued, marker hovering over the page. Riley leaned in, her calloused fingers, rough from gripping camera rigs during her own shoots, brushing the edge as she tapped the frame. But what if trust wins? She opens the door, lets the light in. Her voice was even, but it clashed with my vision, stirring that gravel in my throat. Trust gets you left behind, I snapped, sharper than intended. And call, room stilled, her gaze steady, unflinching. We reworked it in tense silence, compromising on shadows that hinted at both, but the friction lingered, electric. Attraction built subtly, against my will, in those small collisions. Her flannel sleeve grazed my arm as she reached for the mouse, the fabric soft, warm from her skin. I noticed the flecks of her fingers on the controls, those calluses tracing lines I'd only seen in close-ups before. Heat rose unbidden, a pull low in my gut, clashing with the distrust. Why her? Why now, when the project's deadlines loomed like storm clouds? I pulled back each time, focusing on edits, but the awareness stuck. Her presence, a constant hum. Then came the jolt, late one evening as rain pattered the window. We'd been quiet, splicing audio, when she paused, staring at the screen. "This reminds me of my sister," she said softly, unprompted. "She left home young, chasing dreams. I waited by the phone for years, but she never called back. Felt like I'd failed her somehow." Her voice cracked just once, eyes distant. I froze, marker slipping from my fingers, the room's hum fading. It mirrored too close. Abandonment's sting, the waiting that hollowed you out. Empathy flickered, unwanted, thawing the edges I'd iced over. But trust! No, she could say these things, share pieces, yet still walk away when it suited. I mumbled something neutral, heart-thudding, and changed the track. The setback came the next day, a glitch wiping half our files, corrupted drive, hours lost, professor's deadline inflexible. We scrambled. Off-campus reshoots, Riley decided, practical as ever. There's a cabin an hour out, isolated. Perfect for the scenes. No choice. The project demanded it. As we packed gear into her truck, rain slicking the lot, I felt the pull tighten. Proximity stretching beyond the studio into unknown quiet. Distrust warred with that buried want. The drive ahead heavy with what might unravel. The road to the cabin wound through fog-shrouded pines, the truck's tires humming over cracked asphalt. Riley drove, hands loose on the wheel, her flannel sleeve catching the gray light filtering through the windshield. I sat rigid in the passenger seat, camera bag clutched on my lap like a shield, the silence between us, thick, full of unsaid things. Every curve brought us closer to isolation, the project's setback forcing this detour. We'd lost too much footage to recover in the studio. Reshoots were our only shot at meeting the deadline. But out here, away from campus noise, her presence filled the cab, her steady breathing, the faint scent of pine clinging to her skin. I stared out the window, watching mist curl around trunks, my mind replaying that glitch like a bad cut, a one wrong click, and everything we'd built vanished. We arrived as dusk settled, the cabin, squat and weathered, huddled against a ridge. Inside, it smelled of damp wood and old stone, a single room with a stone fireplace and two narrow beds pushed against opposite walls. Gear piled in the corner, we set up lights without words, the air cooling fast. As night fell, she built a fire, flames crackling to life, casting shadows that danced like the doubts in my chest. We reviewed the script by the glow, her knee brushing mine on the threadbare rug. "This scene needs more," she said, voice low. The woman hesitating at the door. "Make it hurt." I nodded, but inside, it echoed too loud, my own hesitations mirroring the frame. Later, embers glowing, we sat with mugs of instant coffee, the fire's warmth pushing back the chill seeping through cracks. She stared into the flames, then spoke, unprompted. "You know, I get this self-protection thing. I've always felt like I'm not enough, like no matter what I do, people drift." Her words hung, raw, her fingers tracing the mug's rim. It mirrored me, that fear of inadequacy twisting into abandonment's blade. My mother hadn't just left. She'd chosen better over us, proving we weren't worth staying for. Riley's gaze met mine, steady. "My dad walked out when I was 10, said he needed space. Mom tried to hold it together, but I saw how it broke her. Made me chase fixes, you know. Try to be the one who stays solid." Vulnerability cracked her calm, her voice softening to a whisper. For a moment, the space between us shrank, empathy pulling like gravity. I wanted to reach out, share the silt of my own loss, but distrust clamped down. Sharing meant risk, meant she'd see the fractures and leave too. I pulled away instead, standing abruptly, the rug rough under my socks. "It's late. We should sleep." My voice came out clipped, sharper than the fire's snap. She nodded, eyes searching but didn't push. I retreated to my bed, the thin blanket no match for the cold, her words looping in my head. Distance was safer. Let the fire die. Let the night swallow the closeness. But as wind rattled the windows, regret settled, heavy as the dark. Back on campus 2 days later, the rough cut played in the screening room. Projector. Humming. The professor leaned forward, arms crossed. "It's surface. No gut punch. Vulnerability demands rawer scenes. Show the terror of opening up, or it's just pretty shadows." Rejection stung. Stakes climbing. Festival judges wanted depth. Or we'd bomb. No portfolio boost. No escape from retail jobs post-grad. We needed more intimate shots, the kind that exposed nerves. In the studio that night, tension simmered. Our edits frantic. Riley suggested reshoots with real emotion. No actors, just us improvising the door scene. You as the woman inside, me knocking. Panic flickered. Too close. Too real. But deadlines bit, so we agreed. The air between us charged. The cabin pull lingered in my bones, but proximity there had intensified everything. Nights blurred into shared spaces, the narrow bed in the loft forcing awareness, her form across the room rising and falling with breath. Cold air nipped, driving us closer to the fire, body's warmth. Cutting the chill. One evening, after a long take, rain lashed the roof, trapping us inside. We huddled under a shared quilt, shoulders touching, her heat seeping through fabric. My pulse thudded, attraction coiling tight, her arm brushing mine as she adjusted the lens. Silence stretched, full again, but this time laced with want. I shifted away, heart slamming, the nearness a threat to my walls. A week on, group critique hit hard. Classmates tore into our concept. Too safe, they said. Lacking stakes. When one guy dismissed it as amateur therapy, Riley straightened, voice firm. Elena's vision drives this. The isolation isn't fluff. It's the fear that makes vulnerability hit. She defended me, eyes flashing, no hesitation. Surprise warmed my chest, a small thaw. No one had backed my work like that, seen the intent behind my guarded cuts. Gratitude flickered, but doubt chased it. Why me? Was it pity? A fix for her own guilts? We pushed through, breakthrough, coming mid-rehearal in the woods near campus. I stood at the cabin door prop, Riley knocking, her voice calling soft. "Let me in." The line blurred. Script or truth? Tears pricked as I cracked the door. Exposure raw, feelings spilling. The pull to her, the terror of loss. She stepped closer, hand on the frame, gaze holding mine. Deeper, want surfaced. Trust, teasing the edges. But as we wrapped the take, doubt resurfaced. Sharp. What if this was temporary, her steadiness just a phase? The project's end loomed, pulling us toward confrontation, walls cracking, but not yet down. The studio lights buzzed low that night, casting long shadows across the cluttered desk. We'd been at it for hours, splicing the new footage from the woods, the raw take where I'd cracked the door and let the words slip. Too real, too close to the bone. Riley's fingers hovered over the mouse, mine brushing hers as we paused the playback. They lingered there, warm and still, the air thickening with everything we weren't saying. Her calluses scraped lightly against my skin, a reminder of the camera work she'd thrown herself into for our shots. I pulled back first, heart thudding, but the heat stayed, coiling low. Exhaustion gripped my eyes, the kind that settled like silt in a riverbed after a storm. We'd pushed through the breakthrough, that moment in the woods exposing the pull between us, but doubt gnawed at the edges. Her steadiness felt like a lure now, drawing me in when I knew better. The project's weight pressed heavier. The festival loomed, judges expecting vulnerability we were barely scraping together. Yet in the quiet, Her presence offered a strange comfort, her flannel sleeve grazing my arm as she leaned to adjust the volume. It wasn't just the warmth, it was the way she stayed, unhurried, like she saw the fractures and didn't flinch. Post-midnight, the campus outside went still, only the distant hum of a vending machine breaking the silence. We sat back. Screens paused on a frame of the door ajar, light spilling in. My walls cracked then, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. It's not just the film. This fear, it's from my mom leaving when I was a kid. She just drove off one morning, no warning. Dad shut down after, and I learned to expect it. People go when it gets hard. My voice came small, the confession hanging raw in the dim light. Vulnerability tasted like ash, but saying it aloud loosened something tight in my chest. Riley turned, her eyes holding mine, steady without a trace of pity. No rush to fill the space, just a gentle touch on my shoulder, her palm firm, grounding, fingers pressing lightly through my shirt. That sounds heavy, Elena. Carrying that alone. I get why you'd build walls. She didn't demand more, didn't probe. The touch lingered a second longer, then withdrew, leaving warmth in its wake. For the first time, trust flickered, real and tentative, like embers refusing to die. Her gaze wrapped around me, patient, and I felt seen, not fixed, just held. We wrapped the edit session in that fragile quiet, packing up as the clock edged toward 3. But the next morning, complication struck like a cold draft. I arrived early, slipping into the studio to grab forgotten notes. The door ajar. Voices filtered from the hall, Riley's, low and earnest, talking to a classmate outside. Yeah, I see it in her, that guarded thing. Makes me want to help fix it, you know. Show her it's not always like that. Laughter followed, light but cutting. Fixing. The word ignited old distrust, hot and sharp. Was that all I was to her? A project to mend, like the film's broken scenes? The silt stirred again, thickening my throat. She'd shared her own scars by the fire, mirrored my fears. But this? It reeked of pity, of someone who stayed only until the challenge faded. By afternoon, the try-fail cycle spun tight. I confronted it head-on, slamming my laptop shut during our next cut. This isn't working. Let's split the credit, submit separately. I can handle the rest alone. My voice cracked on the last word, the studio's hum mocking the resolve. Riley's face fell, confusion etching lines around her eyes. Elena, wait, what happened? We're so close. Deadline bound us, though. The festival entry locked pairs, no changes allowed or we'd both fail. Professor's rules were ironclad, collaborate or bust. I stormed out, rain slicking the quad, but the pull dragged me back by evening. Gear weighted, footage half done. Walking away meant tanking everything. We resumed in silence, her presence a steady anchor amid the grit of fatigue. Coffee stains on the desk, our shadows overlapping on the wall. Comfort crept in despite the rift, her quiet focus a balm against the storm inside. Days blurred, the air in the studio carrying that mix of pine from her clothes and the sharp tang of overbrewed coffee. Exhaustion weighed our limbs, but her steadiness cut through, small gestures piling like unspoken promises, handing me a water bottle. Without a word, remembering to save drafts after the glitch scare. Sensory empathy built in those hours, the rough scrape of my chair as I shifted closer, the soft thud of her foot against mine under the desk. It felt safe, almost, her warmth chasing the chill of doubt. Yet, the overheard words echoed, a barrier I couldn't fully shake. Festival submission night crept closer, the deadline a blade at our throats. We'd polished the rough cut, but the emotional undercurrent simmered unresolved, my confession hanging, her touch a ghost on my shoulder. One evening, as thunder rumbled outside, she paused, the playback, turning to me. We need to talk. Really talk. Before we lock this in. The air crackled, forcing the confrontation I'd dodged. Her eyes held that steady pull, demanding I face the walls or watch them crumble for good. The screening prep room felt like a pressure cooker that week, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as we huddled over the final cut. Festival submission was days away, the file needing upload by midnight Friday, or we'd missed the slot entirely. No extensions, no mercy from the judges. We'd dragged in extra footage from the woods, raw takes that bled emotion, but every tweak sparked arguments that dug deeper than the script. Cut that hesitation longer, Riley said one afternoon, her finger jabbing the timeline. It needs to ache. I shot back, voice rising. No, it'll drag. You're turning this into therapy, not film. The words turned personal fast, unearthing scars I'd buried. You don't get it. Pushing exposure just invites the hurt, like every ex who's walked out when I showed too much. My hands shook on the mouse, the room's air stale with our breaths. She paused, eyes narrowing. And you think hiding fixes it? I've seen that road. Ends in alone. The console between us felt like a fault line, cracking under the weight of old pains. My high school girlfriend vanishing after one vulnerable night, the college fling who bailed mid-argument, leaving notes half-written. Riley's push felt like judgment, stirring the silt of failures I'd cut from my own story. That evening, as rain sheeted the windows, she shared more, her voice dropping low amid the thunder. We sat on the studio floor, backs against the desk, laptops forgotten. My family, they abandoned me in pieces. Dad first, then Mom when the money ran dry. Said I was old enough to fend for myself at 16. Landed me in foster limbo, bouncing between houses that weren't home. Her fingers traced a scar on her knuckle, voice steady but edged with gravel. Made me vow I'd never leave anyone hanging, but it backfired. Chased relationships to prove I could hold on. The parallel hit hard, her words mirroring my mother's exit, the hollow after. We weren't so different, both scarred by loss, building lives around the fear. Empathy tugged, thawing the frost I'd packed around my heart. Her gaze met mine, raw, and for a breath, the space between us warmed. Like firelight on cold stone, but panic slammed in after, my heart thudding against ribs like a trapped bird. Vulnerability with her felt like prelude to loss. Opening up meant she'd see the broken parts and bolt just like the rest. That night, alone in my dorm, doubts swirled, the rain mirroring the storm inside. I paced, script pages crumpled in my fist, the project's end looming like an exit sign. What if her shares were just bait, drawing me out before the fade? Sleep evaded. The bed, too empty, her steady presence a ghost I both craved and cursed. The turning point came uninvited, the next dawn. I'd cracked, solo breakdown hitting as I stared at the ceiling, tears hot on my cheeks. A knock rattled the door. Riley, backpack slung, coffee in hand. Saw your light on all night. Figured you needed this. No questions. Just entry, her flannel damp from the drizzle. She sat on the bed's edge, close but not crowding, handing me the mug. Warmth seeped through ceramic, grounding the spin. Talk if you want, or not. Her presence anchored, no demands, just quiet hold. I whispered fragments, the X's, the waiting for calls that never came, and she listened, hand brushing mine once, light as fog. Trust built in increments after, small acts, stacking like exposed film. She'd save revised scripts to backups without fanfare, pulling them up when glitches threatened. During a late run-through, she recited forgotten lines from memory, her voice filling the gaps I'd left. You said it like this, hesitant but real. No show, just doing. Her calluses brushing paper as she passed the pages. It chipped at the walls, her reliability, a slow seep against the drought of past leavings. Then the genre shift, mid-take in the empty auditorium we'd commandeered for tests. I fumbled the door scene, tripping over the prop threshold, landing in a heap with the fake lantern clattering. Tense silence followed, my face burning. Riley stared, then burst out laughing. Deep, unguarded, her hand covering her mouth. That was epic. Like a bad horror flick. I froze, then joined, the sound bubbling up, light against the weight. We replayed it, giggling over the blooper, her shoulder bumping mine. From heavy quiet to this, shared absurdity cutting the edge, a glimpse of ease without the blade. The film neared completion that night, final polish, humming under our fingers. But our tension mirrored it, unresolved, pulling taut. Her knee grazed mine under the desk, eyes holding questions. Climax built, the submission a threshold, forcing us to face what lay beyond the cut. Thunder rolled outside the studio window that final edit night, the storm mirroring the churn in my gut. Rain hammered the glass in sheets, wind rattling the frame like it wanted in. We'd been at it since dusk, the film's last frames locking into place under our hands. Riley clicked save, the screen glowing steady now, but my resolve flickered like the lights overhead, buzzing, dimming with each gust. The yard. Festival upload waited, a simple button press away, but everything felt teetering. Her knee pressed against mine under the desk, warm through denim, her flannel sleeve brushing my wrist as she leaned back. The air smelled of wet earth seeping through cracks, and the sharp bite of ozone, heavy with the weight of what we'd built. Not just the film, the raw edges we'd exposed in each other, the confessions that hung between us like unfinished takes. I couldn't hold it anymore. The storm outside pushed it out, words spilling sharp as the lightning cracking the sky. "You're going to leave, aren't you?" My voice broke on the edge, raw, the accusation hanging in the dim blue from the monitor. She turned, eyes widening, the steady gaze cracking for the first time. "What?" "Elena, no." But I cut her off, standing fast, chair scraping back like a wound. "Don't, I've seen it before. You dive in, fix things, make it feel safe, but when it's real, when the walls come down, you go, like my mom, like everyone." Tears burned hot, blurring her face, the rain's rhythm pounding in my ears. Heart slamming against ribs, I paced the narrow space, the grit of exhaustion mixing with the silt of old fears. Her words from the hall echoed, fixing me like I was broken footage to splice clean. The project's end loomed. Submission meaning freedom, her exit inevitable. Riley rose slow, hands out like calming a skittish frame. "Elena, listen. That's not—" Thunder drowned her, lights flickering again, plunging us into shadow for a beat. When they steadied, her face was close, etched with something fierce. I felt it from the start, that pull. The first day when our hands brushed over the script, I was drawn in, your guarded way, the fire behind it. But I waited. Didn't want to push, scare you off. This isn't fixing. It's real. You're real to me. Her admission landed soft but sure, voice gravel rough, eyes holding mine without flinching. Attraction early on. God, it twisted the knife, making the distrust burn hotter. She'd seen through me from the pairing, held back for connection, not pity. But trust? It felt like a trap still. Her steadiness, a promise, too good, too fragile against the storm. Panic peaked then, flight instinct kicking like a bad cut. I grabbed my bag, stuffing in notes, laptop cord tangling in my haste. "No, we're done. Upload it solo if you want credit." "I can't." The words choked, door in sight. Freedom from the pull. But my feet dragged, hesitation rooting me mid-stride. The rain lashed harder, blurring the window to a gray veil, mirroring the blur inside. Leaving meant safety. Isolation's cold comfort, but it ached deeper than staying. Her presence tugged, that warmth I'd leaned into despite myself. The shared mugs, the laughter over bloopers, the touch on my shoulder that lingered like embers. She crossed the room in 2 steps, hand catching my arm, turning me gentle but firm. "Don't. Please." Her plea came raw, voice breaking now, fingers clinging to my sleeve, calluses pressing through fabric. I know the fear, mine's the same, waiting for the door to shut on me. But this, us, it's not inevitable. Stay. Let me show you. Tears tracked her cheeks, mixing with the damp from the storm's chill seeping in. No demands, just hold her body close enough I felt her breath hitch. The cling broke something, fear cracking under the weight of her realness, the parallel scars we'd shared by firelight. Hands trembling, I dropped the bag, turning into her, the dam giving way. We embraced amid the rain-lashed windows, her arms wrapping tight, flannel soft against my cheek. Tears mixed with relief. Salt on skin, her heartbeat thudding steady against mine. The storm raged on, but inside, release washed through. Physical, the press of her warmth chasing cold. Emotional, walls crumbling in the quiet hold. No words at first, just Breath sinking. Her hand stroking my back, slow, grounding the spin. Vulnerability flooded. Not terror now, but light spilling through the crack. She'd waited, seen me, stayed through the glitches and doubts. Trust bloomed tentative, a root pushing silt aside. The light steadied as thunder faded, screens humming back to life. Riley pulled back slight, eyes searching mine, thumb brushing a tear from my cheek. We finished this. Together, I nodded, voice small. Together. The upload clicked minutes later, file sent into the void. Festival acceptance, a distant hope. But resolution dawned there, in the storm's wake, our beginning mirroring the film's door ajar. Light, not threat, but promise. The world outside quieted, rain easing to a patter, and for the first time, staying felt like home. The festival hall buzzed that evening, strings of lights strung across the rafters like hesitant stars. We'd arrived early, the air thick with polished wood and the faint tang of projector oil. Riley's hand brushed mine as we found seats in the back row, her fingers lingering just long enough to steady the flutter in my chest. The film played soon after, our short flickering on the screen, shadows in the cabin, the door cracking open, light spilling, hesitant but true. The audience leaned forward, breaths held in the quiet moments we'd fought for. When the credits rolled, applause rippled, but my focus stayed on her profile, the way her jaw softened in the dim glow. Word came during intermission, the MC calling our names over the speakers, for best exploration of vulnerability, Elena and Riley. We rose together, her palm warm against my back as we climbed the stage. The award, a simple plaque, heavy in my hands, felt secondary to the shared glance we exchanged up there, eyes meeting in silent acknowledgement. The true victory wasn't the medal. It was this, standing side by side, our mutual rawness laid bare without shattering. Vulnerability had won, not through force, but through the slow seep of trust we'd carved out. Her hand found mine off stage, squeezing once, the calluses, grounding me amid the crowd's murmurs. In the quiet aftermath, as guests milled toward the exits, we slipped into a side alcove, the hall's noise fading to a hum. Rain from earlier left the air cool, damp seeping through the open door. Riley turned to me, her flannel damp at the edges, eyes holding that steady pull. We did it. Her voice came low, rough from the day's tension. I nodded, the space between us shrinking. Then she leaned in, slow, her breath warm on my skin. Our lips met, soft at first, tentative, tasting of salt from unshed tears and the promise of what followed. Her hand cupped my cheek, thumb tracing my jaw, the kiss deepening with the weight of everything held back. It wasn't rushed. It was release, her warmth chasing the last chill of isolation. When we parted, foreheads touching, I felt the shift, staying, not as fear, but as choice. Growth settled in me that night, quiet but sure. Isolation had been my armor, the empty spaces a familiar ache, but Riley's presence pulled stronger now, stability's draw over the void. No more bracing for the door to slam. Instead, this anchor, her hand in mine as we walked back to the truck. The campus paths stretched dark under sodium lights, leaves slick from the storm. "What now?" I asked, voice small in the night. She squeezed my fingers. "Us. Whatever that looks like." The words dissolved the final knots, doubt fading like fog under sun. We talked future in fragments over the next days, plans weaving like exposed film strips. "Another collaboration," she suggested one morning in the studio, clearing out gear, but lingering over coffee. "A series, maybe. Build on this." Her eyes lit, hands gesturing broad. I saw it. Shared lenses, her steady grip on the camera, my cuts finding depth without hiding. Hands intertwined across the console, her thumb stroking my knuckles, the grip firm, unyielding. It felt real. Roots pushing through silt, the pull of together over alone. The queer campus group gathered that weekend, a low-key celebration in the lounge, posters peeling at edges, mismatched chairs, circled under string lights. Friends from class filtered in. Some I'd nodded to in halls, others bolder in their welcomes. Heard about the win, one said, pulling us into hugs. Riley's arm stayed around my waist, her flannel brushing my side. Stories swapped, first crushes, hidden notes passed in dorms, validating the bond we'd forged, not in isolation, but here, woven into this tapestry. Laughter rose, easy, her shoulder against mine a quiet anchor. No judgments, just nods of understanding, the group's warmth mirroring her own. It chipped the last of my walls, belonging not as risk, but as home. Later, as the group thinned, Riley leaned close, breath warm on my ear. I'm not going anywhere. You hear that? This stays. Her whisper cut through the chatter, assurance wrapping tight, dissolving the echoes of old leavings. Mother's taillights faded further, replaced by this. Her voice. Gravel steady, eyes locking mine. Tears pricked, but relief followed, the fear's grip loosening to nothing. We walked the campus paths that final evening, gravel crunching soft underfoot, the world less empty now. Her hand in mine, flannel sleeve grazing my arm, the air carrying pine from her skin. Paths curved familiar, but together they stretched open, no shadows closing in. Stability pulled, warm and sure, the isolation, a memory I'd cut away. The diner booth creaked under us the morning after the festival, vinyl sticky from overnight spills, the air thick with grease and fresh coffee. Sun slanted through smudged windows, catching the faint scars on Riley's palms as her fingers traced mine across the table. Rough lines from camera grips, soft ridges from old falls, each mark a story we'd only begun to share. I let her touch linger, the warmth seeping slow, grounding the post-wind haze. Last night felt like a dream, she said, voice low over the clink of plates. I nodded, thumb brushing her knuckle. Real enough to scare me still. Fears surfaced head-on then, words spilling over cooling eggs. I need to know you'll stay, even when it's messy. Reassure me sometimes. Don't let me spin alone. My voice trembled, vulnerability raw in the diner's hum. Riley's eyes held steady, no flinch. I will, every day if you need. I'm here for the long cuts, not the quick fades. Her patience wrapped around me, patient as the rain easing outside, dissolving the knots I'd carried. Intimate moments built from there, her apartment visits turning routine. Shared mugs on the couch, her flannel draped over my shoulders as we scrolled festival feedback. Safety woven, the space feeling less like borrowed time, more like roots. One evening, my phone buzzed. A call from Dad, his voice echoing Mom's absence, stirring old silt. He asked if I'm okay, like always, but it hit the abandonment spot. Tears pricked. Riley pulled me close, hand stroking my hair. You're not alone in that echo. I've got you. Her support grounded, steady as the floorboards under us. Hope expanded in quiet talks, future travels sketched on napkins, coastal drives, lens in hand, capturing horizons together. Roots took hold, her laugh filling the gaps I'd once feared empty. Sensory closure came in the warmth of her flannel against my skin that night. Silence comforting now, full of us. As our story's credits rolled in my mind, certainty settled, deep and sure. The door to our shared future clicked open that dawn. No looking back, just forward into the light we'd let in. If this pulled at your own hidden fears, subscribe for more stories that linger. Tell me below, what kept you staying?